Ooh, rolled a 1. Damn. Are we 4K now, baby? So, yeah, this... Can you believe this? Out of a whole set of, dry erase markers, the only one that survived, I have no idea where the others are. I mean, seriously, how do you lose dry erase markers? All that's left is the green one out of my entire set. Anyway, I digress. This is my latest creation. Not super original in the sense that it's fundamentally just a D20, an icosahedron. Although, I will say the kind of fun thing about this is, I think 3 or 4 years ago I made a item on my to-do list, and that was to design an artifact from the Neotonian continuum to be printed, 3D printed in bronze. For one, because I've always wanted to make a Neotonian artifact just for fun, and secondly, like, bronze is just such a cool metal, and to be able to have something, and technically this is 3D printed in wax and then cast in bronze, so it's not like actually 3D printed in bronze, but yeah, anyway, I just thought it would be so cool to have something 3D printed in bronze. And so here it is. On casual inspection, you're probably like, well, that's all well and good, but how the hell do you know what numbers go to one side, or which sides? And first of all, see, this is laid out in the same way as all D20s. So, in other words, D20 numerals have a certain pattern that they follow in terms of both orientation and relative position. So it's the same for this dice. However, this is a unary Neotonian numeral system that I used on here that's based on a 3-step algorithm that I designed and developed, which is well documented on my website. But I'm about to break it down. Sorry this video is so long, but this is more to me than just the object you see before you. It's kind of a representation of a bunch of ideas and stuff. So I could tell you in just a moment, like just at a glance, what any one of these numbers are on here, because there's a pattern there's a method to the madness, and it's actually pretty easy to figure out once you know the rules. First of all, let me show you the unit size. So, see this tiny little triangle here? Oh, this is not a good pointing device. That tiny little triangle there, that's like 1 unit. Let me see if I can. So this is that's like 1 unit, you know. So if there was just one triangle, that's a 1. And then the next unit up is, of course, 4 of these triangles together. So that's a 4, right? And then the next one up beyond that is 16, which is 4 of those. So 4 times 4, which is 16. So yeah, this is pretty straightforward, but okay. So 1, 4, 16. And that simple breakdown of triangular shapes can tell you pretty much what any number on here is. There's more to it than that, and I'll go over that in a second, but basically, see, here I'll just pick one at random. So the center is the number. The cutouts on the outside edges, those are what I call the balance. So basically that's just to make it so every metal side weighs exactly the same amount. So that means that 20 triangles are removed because it's a unary system and it's a D20. 20 metal triangles of this 1 unit are removed from every single face. But the numbers are different. They are 1 through 20. So this number in the middle, you can see there's a big triangle and a little triangle, so that's basically 4 plus 1. So the number for this side is 5, and that means that 15, hey P-chan, cat's meowing at me, that means that 15 other triangles also need to be removed from the total face to create the negative 20, which will give you a uniform balance for each one. So here's this one right here is what is that? Did I miss one? I think I missed one. There's actually, right, there's one with sorry, I should have included this. I forgot there's other triangle possibilities here. So let's see. Right, okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's a 9 also. Sorry. It's kind of confusing. Yeah, that one little hiccup there really made this confusing. But okay, so then you have 9 plus 4, which is 13, plus 2, which is 15. So yeah, sorry I left out that that other triangular unit. So there's actually 1, 4, 9, and 16, and you can visually tell them pretty easily. Like this big one obviously is 16. I need a better pointing device. Let me get my this'll work. Yeah, so this big one is 16. This is a 9, this is a 4, and this is a 1. And it's not as hard as it sounds to be able to tell them apart. But it does take just a little bit of learning to figure it out. Let's go to another random side. So this one is a 4, and this is a 4, so that's 8, and then this is a 9, so 17. And then the balance of that would be 3. And since it's in the center, the number's actually 3. And you can tell just at a glance that this is 3 of those 1 units. So this side of the die is 3. And that's basically how it works. The only deviation from the pattern is, unfortunately, was caused by the algorithm, but it's still fairly straightforward too. This one, you would think, oh, well, here's a large 16 unit triangle at the top, and that means it's on the outside, so it's technically not part of the number, which is only the triangles in the center. However, because of the way the algorithm works, there was no way to space this triangle in the center without bumping one of these triangles on the bottom off the matrix. So I had to bump up the big 16 here. So this is 16 plus 2 is 18, with the balance of 2, 19, and 20 on the outside. So there's only 2 exceptions to this the algorithm, and that's the 18, well, I guess 19. Let's see, what's this, 17? Okay, so it starts at 17. Jesus Christ, I don't even know my own work here. Alright, 17 I think is the first, yeah, because there's 1. So 17, 18, 19, and of course 20. All because of that triangle. This one's 20, which is kind of cool. So you got the 16 plus 4, so that's 20, and there's no balance on this, which is kind of neat. I think it might be the only one with no balance. Yeah, so that's the P-chan. So that's the basics of how the system works. Like here's another one, 4 plus 2. That one's side is 6, And after a while, you start to recognize the patterns. Like if you see this, you know instantly that it's 20. So even though the algorithm for this number system is like really well documented on my website, I'm just going to go over it really quick because I think it's kind of cool. So basically, you start out with your central triangle, and I want to point out that this particular algorithm, it's a very simple, like 3-step algorithm, and what it does is it allows you to index a point in space precisely with a single string at any scale, whether it's up or down. So infinitely to the subatomic level, you could pinpoint a point in space, or up into the macro, like the known universe scale, you could pinpoint a point in space. So this is how it works. Basically, you have your central core triangle, which the index for that is 0, and then you're basically building a larger triangle out of that, and sorry, I'm gonna reset this, and we're just gonna start. This is 0. That's the central triangle. I always forget it's upside down. And then you move it into this adjacent triangle. So the rules for this algorithm are built on adjacency, basically, and then a left to right, I think it is, spiral. So you start at the center, and then you go up here. This would be 1, and then left to right you go down to here. This is 2, and then you go from there to here, and that's 3. So if you were constructing a number using this algorithm, technically there's no 0, so you'd start with 1, which is just, it doesn't have to be 0. It can be 1. It can start with 1, and then this would be 2, and this would be 3, and this would be 4. That's fine too, but this is just how the algorithm works. So you would start with number 1 here in the center, which is, let me find it on here. Oh yeah, here's 1 right here. And then since technically it would be upside down, it would be, yeah, that's right, like this. So there's 1, and then we find 2 on here, which is right here. So yeah, like this. So you can see it goes up into the goes up into the next triangle, and then let's find 3. Is that 3? Yeah. Okay, so it's like this. So 1 in the middle, then it goes up to 2, and then it goes down to 3, and then the next one's 4 across. So anyway, you get the idea. Here's the thing. The algorithm is consistent, but this is how it transitions to the next triangle, which is essentially the same exact pattern, only on a slightly larger scale, because once you are moving into the next adjacent triangle, you're actually creating a larger version of the initial triangle, because let me show you what I'm talking about. I just imagine that these are going to exist in the future, but they haven't been fleshed out yet. So if you were to create the more microcosm here, and then apply the same 3-step rule, 1, 2, 3, to the macrocosm, then the next triangle that you would go into would be the one that was directly adjacent spatially from 0. And if this triangle is 0, then the next adjacent transition that you would move to would be let's find it on here on the dice actually. I gotta look for the one that has right like this. So here's the top triangle, right? And you're basically moving to this. So this would be 4. And then, because you're working with a mirror image, instead of, you're still going left to right, but you just have to imagine this flipped around. So the arrow is actually going in the opposite direction, and so is the direction of the transition. So you go from 4 to 5, because it's directly connected, and then your arrow goes this way, and this is 6, and then this is 7, and then you start to transition out into these other triangles, and it gets a lot more complicated, but you're following the exact same rules no matter what. And if you wanted to index any point in this graph, no matter how big or small you went, it could all be represented with a single string, because this number just goes on and on. And if it goes downwards into the negatives, then that would be like you'd be dividing up this 0 into a triangular fractal that goes off into infinity. So anyway, that's how the Neotonian numeral unary system works. And so this is actually like a physical representation of that, although it's really simplified because it's just 1 to 20. It's not like a really long number. So yeah, anyway, wow, this was a long video that started out really really short. I'm actually gonna link to my sort of like what you might call a white paper that describes how this algorithm works in detail. But anyway, meanwhile, I'm very pleased with this this 3D print, and I had Shapeways 3D print this. It cost like $40, and it's really solid even though it's only a millimeter thin. I also rebuilt the model so that the proportions are like precise. So like there's 2 millimeters between there. Every triangle is exactly 2 millimeters on a side. I did a bunch of other things, like it's exactly 1 millimeter thick. I just really cleaned up the original metal D20 model that I made years ago. Yeah, this is polished. I don't know why they did that. When I ordered it, I went with the cheapest option, which was just I forgot what they call it, natural finish, I think, which you can sort of see on the inside, which is kind of has the lines of the wax that they 3D print. It's hard to see. You can sort of make it out. For some reason, they like polished it, and this is just like not a mirror finish, but it's a pretty decent polishing job. I was amazed. I can't remember how much extra it is normally, like $16 or $20 or something to have it polished like this, but apparently they just did it for free. I would have actually honestly preferred the natural finish, but you know, I'm not gonna complain about having this nice polish job for free, because trust me, it's pretty labor intensive to polish metal to a fairly fine finish. So anyway, yeah, I hope you found this video interesting, and thanks for watching.